Hi guys, Scott Martin, aka Guy in a Cap. Um, I want to talk to you today a little bit about anxiety. When I'm working with different clients and they're experiencing different types of anxiety, one of the first things that I ask people is where? Where do you feel that anxiety in the body? And one of the reasons that I ask this question is because there's a real difference between a story, a narrative that we're running in our head, the language of the mind, and a felt sense. And one of the core key uh, aspects of mental emotional health is the reality that we have autonomic nervous system reactions of fight, flight, or freeze in the body, meaning that we don't have painful thoughts. We have thoughts that then send a signal into the body where we then experience some sort of discomfort, uncomfortability, pain somewhere in the body. And even though there is a lot of subjectiveness to this, because as individuals we're all very complex with a lot of different stories, there does seem to be some patterns of objectivity as well. And I'll give you a couple of those. If someone is experiencing kind of things in the head, tension, headaches, different type of pressure, it can be different types of sensation. Frequently, not always, but frequently, this has to do with control or confusion. In other words, we can't control something or we are confused by something. Right here in the neck, often we see this having to do with authenticity. Like I can't speak, I can't say what I really want to say. I can't be authentic. No one's listening. I can't have my voice can't be heard at this moment. Then down here in the chest, this is a very rich area for there's a lot of things actually that come on there. The back, the neck, where people hold stress, a lot of times like a weight of the world or almost like a backpack of rocks as well. But the chest here, very specifically, tightness, tension, anger, resentment, hurt. Anger is almost always masking hurt here in the chest. And heartache or heartbreak, which we now know through several different studies is a signal from the brain into the vagus nerve in the neck, chest, and upper digestive. It feels kind of like a giant gaping hole or a wound right here in the chest. If you've ever had your heart broken, you're kind of familiar with this. You've experienced this, and if you haven't, then it's probably coming for you at some point because it's kind of a part of the human experience. And then down here in the solar plexus, if this is more about power, so you see people kind of crossing their arms in front of them, social anxiety, you see butterflies, things like that. Don't take my power away from me. And so there's a language of the mind where when we're lost in a narrative, science tells us that there's a default mode network, brain activity that's occurring in a particular way when we're lost in that story, either in the past or the future. When we're in the now, in the present moment, there's a different type of brain activity that's called the experiential mode. And one way that many of us can decrease suffering is by practicing coming into the present moment. You see a teacher of presence with Eckhart Tolle. You see a lot of different types of meditations that are out there as well. We all know that being present is something of great value. And so I would pose that whatever the brain expects to do is what it's going to do. And this is demonstrated by something known as the Tetris effect. There was, I think, 27 students at a university that were paid to play the game Tetris. That's where the shapes come out of the sky and you have to make a solid line and disappear. And by the second night, I believe, over 60% of the students were seeing shapes falling out of the sky in their dreams. Or they be walking across campus and they're like, if I took that building and I turned it sideways, I wonder if I could fit it between that building and Liberty Hall. It became a detriment to them that they began playing the game in their mind even when they weren't playing the game. This is known as the Tetris effect. So if we want to put that effect to use in our life, I would pose a few questions. And some good examples are, if you want to be really good at tennis, what do you do? Well, a lot of people would answer practice. If you want to be really good at playing an instrument, like say a guitar, what do you do? Well, you practice the guitar. So if you want to be really good at being present, what do you do? And I would say practice presence. And we can do this in a lot of different stress reduction ways of paying attention to breath, paying attention to sensation, paying attention using mantras, paying attention to something that focuses the mind in such a way that it comes out of the story in our heads, often the story that's kind of kicking our ass a little bit, all right? So when we talk about anxiety, You know, here in Texas, which is where I'm at, basically on most of the highways, you'll see, you know, there's a white line, and then on the other side of the white line, there's what's kind of known as a rumble strip. And I would ask, what's the purpose of that rumble strip? Most people appropriately would answer, well, it's to wake you up. It's to give you a signal. It's to tell you that you're going out of homeostasis and you need to make a course correction in some way to get back in the center of the or in the center of your life. So it's a signal. So if we took away the rumble strip and we start drifting off to the side because we're kind of falling sleepy or something, then exponentially our odds of doing what just increase? Well, running off the road, spinning out and crashing. So when we talk about anxiety, right now in our society, one of the common things to do is to go to a doctor and get medication. And one of the medications that's out there that basically is acceptable for treating anxiety is something that affects GABA, neurotransmitter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take something that's going to, in effect, treat the symptom of anxiety. So the symptom of anxiety is that we've got part of the body that's lighting up in a particular way, telling us that something isn't right. And so if we take a medication that's going to kill that signal, our odds of doing what just exponentially increased. Well, spinning out, crashing as well. And so we want to take a look at that anxiety is the rumble strip. Anxiety is the guide. We don't want to shut off the guide. What we want to do is we want to figure out how to listen to the guide, to process and adjust what the guide is telling us. And so there's normally two major reasons why we would have anxiety. And, you know, for a lot of psychiatrists, I would agree that anxiety is kind of a trash word. But, you know, bear with me just for a moment. One, we have a signal that's basically saying, you know what, look, you're in danger. Slow your roll. Like, that's actually the reason for the signal, to warn us that biologically something's going on that we need to protect ourselves, right? So the other reason is that we have been through an experience where we've experienced an emotional conditioning, a trauma, little t, big T, as defined by anything that comes at us so fast that it overwhelms us that we can't process it. So we still have all the lights on in order to keep us safe. So we have an unprocessed memory that is basically still triggering based off of something that we've gone through in the past. So in those two different scenarios, one is keeping us safe. The other one is something that is keeping us safe, or it's something that still needs to be processed. So what it's pointing to is something that needs to be processed. And so the next question will be, okay, well, how do you process that? And right now, we know more about the autonomic nervous system in the brain than we ever have, and we'll probably, that knowledge is going to be exponentially increasing. But unfortunately, from our discoveries about how to treat anxiety, depression, these type of things, PTSD, there seems to be this pattern where it's about 20 years from research to clinical application. Well, that's what kind of this video is about, is to educate people about what is possible. Right now, we know that we have the ability through a lot of different somatic techniques, EMDR, EFT, SE, TRE. Look up these acronyms for these types of therapies that are out there. Emotional freedom technique, EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, somatic experiencing, somata respiratory integration, trauma releasing exercises. These type of techniques that allow us to actually downregulate the autonomic nervous system from where it's been upregulated at some point in our past, and to actually get in touch with some of the body's natural healing that's going to occur if we get our prefrontal cortex out of the way, that's basically held all of our trauma in very specific scenarios and situations. If we can synapse different aspects of the brain, bilateral stimulation, acupressure, different aspects of inputting a physical stimulus that interrupts the signal that's going from the brain to the autonomic nervous system, then we can short circuit that process, reset how that's showing up in the body. And if you can take the pain out of the body, then our painful memories are just a story. They always were just a story. They're just stories that are still triggering us. And you know, so a simple example here is if you have somebody that hit you with a bat 20 years ago and you haven't processed that memory, then if somebody walks into the room now with the bat, your body is going to react no matter what your rational mind is going to do. And so that is an example of something that needs to be downregulated so that we can function and not necessarily always have the lights on. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular video. If you like the way that we're approaching these particular topics, I encourage you to like down below, pass it on and share, and stick around and see if we can give you some other opportunities for maybe making some major shifts in your life as well. Thanks for watching.